Fellas, you know Degree Cool Rush deodorant, right? Well, last year they changed the formula, and guys were mad about it. One dude even started a petition. So guess what? Degree heard us, admitted they messed up, and brought the original Cool Rush scent back exactly how it was. And it's in Walmart, Target, and other stores now for under $4. So grab some and remember why its cool, crisp, and fresh scent made it the #1 men's antiperspirant for the last decade. Degree Cool Rush is back, and it smells like victory for all of us.
The Other Side of Midnight.
77 WNBC.
Local Spotlight.
Good morrow, everyone. This is The Other Side of Midnight on 77 WABC. I'm Frank Morano. Well, yesterday was quite the scene at the Columbus Day Parade in Manhattan. And while I didn't catch a glimpse of Mayor Eric Adams himself, I did spot a few of his staffers and plenty of fans of this show and of mine waving flags and decked out in their best New York gear. It was great to meet a lot of you. Thank you for everybody that came over and said hello. However, what really got people talking wasn't the parade itself, but Mayor Adams' choice of headwear in a move that has ignited a firestorm among sports fans. Adams showed up wearing a baseball cap featuring not one, but both the Mets and Yankees logos. Yes, you heard me correctly. The logos of both New York teams on the same hat. Now, to some, this might sound like the mayor was trying to bridge the city's baseball divide. But to the diehard fans, this was nothing short of heresy. One fan on Twitter went as far as to say he should be indicted just for this. And let's be honest, for sports fans, this is no minor offense. The hat, as it turns out, is a throwback to the 2000 Subway Series between the Yankees and the Mets. You remember that series? I unfortunately do. The Yankees beat the Mets 4-1, and the rivalry between fans has only grown more intense since then. So why dig up those old memories, especially when both teams are deep in their championship series runs? The Mets obviously are fighting the Dodgers. I was happy that we won earlier last night. And the Yankees are up against the Guardians. Tensions are high, and adding a double-branded cap to the mix is like pouring gasoline on a fire. Councilmember Justin Brannan even chimed in, joking that Adams' choice was an egregious violation of the duality of man, channeling Carl Jung. He even proposed a fake law to make that hat illegal, and I must say I agree. Wearing a hat with both logos is the sports equivalent of waving a flag that represents both the Union and the Confederacy. You just can't do it. Pick a side. New Yorkers take their baseball allegiances seriously, whether you're a Yankee fan or a Met fan, or even as de Blasio was, a Red Sox fan. You've got to draw a line. It also reminded me of when Mike Bloomberg wore Yankees gear to the 2003 Columbus Day Parade, but raised eyebrows with his suspiciously Red Sox-looking socks. At least back then, we didn't have social media to fuel the outrage. In fairness to Mayor Adams, he's got a lot more on his plate than baseball these days, facing all these corruption charges. But come on, no excuse for this.
Beam me up!
To be continued.
Running a business comes with a lot of what-ifs. But luckily, there's a simple answer to them. Shopify. It's the commerce platform behind millions of businesses, including Thrive Cosmetics and Momofuku. And it'll help you with everything you need. From website design and marketing to boosting sales and expanding operations, Shopify can get the job done and make your dream a reality. Turn those what-ifs into... Sign up for your $1 per month trial at shopify.com/special offer.
The Other Side of Midnight.
77 WNBC.
Local Spotlight.
Good morrow. It's time to talk about something that's completely out of hand and, quite frankly, outrageous. The alarming rise in attacks on our NYPD officers. According to new data, assaults on cops have surged to unprecedented levels. So far this year, 1,975 officers have been assaulted while on the job in New York City. That's a 41% jump from last year and a staggering 60% increase since 2019. Let that sink in for a moment. Nearly 2,000 officers attacked just for doing their jobs. Now, this isn't just a small uptick. It's a disturbing trend that's been rising for 5 straight years, and we've got to ask ourselves why. Some officers believe it's because there's growing disrespect for law enforcement and a sense that criminals can attack cops and face no real consequences. I think there's actually something to that. One veteran officer put it bluntly in the New York Post article of the weekend on this. Years ago, you had to be really crazy to fight a cop. Now, it's open season. And it's not just career criminals. Even protesters and in some cases migrants have been involved in these attacks. Here's the problem. When people feel like they can assault an officer and get away with it, the whole system starts to break down. Officers on the ground know that many of these attackers are back on the streets within hours, often thanks to bail funds set up by activist groups. They're literally hitting the streets again, sometimes before the officers they attacked have even finished their paperwork. It's absurd, and it's demoralizing for the men and women who put their lives on the line to keep us safe. Patrick Hendry, the president of the Police Benevolent Association, summed it up perfectly when he said, quote, "They think they can take a swing at a cop and get away with it because they believe the justice system is on their side." And that's where the problem lies. The consequences aren't swift or strong enough to send a message that this kind of behavior won't be tolerated. Sure, there's some progress in court cases, but it's moving too slowly and it's not making its way to the streets where these attacks are happening. Let's be clear. This shouldn't be tolerated. Assaulting a police officer is an assault on the very fabric of order in our society. These brave men and women are the last line of defense between law and chaos. And when that line gets crossed without serious consequences, we all suffer. Officers should not have to go to work fearing they'll be attacked and that their attackers will walk away scot-free. As one longtime Bronx officer suggested, we need mandatory minimum sentences for assaulting a cop. I think he's probably right. A strong message needs to be sent that violence against law enforcement won't be shrugged off.
Beam me up!
To be continued.
Get ready for Universal Epic Universe, featuring the wizarding world of Harry Potter, Ministry of Magic, and Super Nintendo World. Now open at Universal Orlando Resort. Tickets and packages on sale now at universalorlando.com.
The Other Side of Midnight.
77 WABC.
Local Spotlight.
This year, New York City voters are being asked to weigh in on 6 propositions. I've given you my analysis and opinion of the top 3. Now let me give you my take on Proposal 4, which might not be grabbing the headlines, but it's incredibly important when it comes to public safety legislation. Here's what it's all about and why you should care. In a nutshell, Proposal 4 would require 30 days of public notice and review time before the City Council can vote on any laws related to public safety, specifically those that impact the NYPD, the Fire Department, or the Department of Correction. During this time, the mayor and the relevant agencies could also hold public hearings to allow for additional public input. In other words, the proposal would slow down the legislative process a bit, giving the public and affected agencies a chance to weigh in before the City Council can move forward. Now, there are arguments on both sides of this issue. Supporters of Proposal 4 believe that this extra time will allow for greater public awareness and input on important issues that affect safety in our city. They argue that public safety laws deserve additional scrutiny, especially given their potential to impact the day-to-day operations of critical services like the police, fire, and corrections departments. By requiring more notice and time for consideration, it ensures that these important decisions aren't rushed through without proper debate and input from the public. On the other hand, opponents argue that Proposal 4 could result in unnecessary red tape They worry that this additional bureaucracy will slow down the city's ability to respond to urgent public safety needs. Opponents also argue that the mayor could use this 30-day period to interfere in the city council's legislative process, giving the executive branch more power than it should have in matters of public safety legislation. Now, I have to admit, I'm a bit torn on this one. Normally, I'm reluctant to treat public safety legislation any differently than any other types of laws. I think it sets a precedent that I'm not entirely comfortable with, where one type of legislation gets more scrutiny than others, and it could create unnecessary delays when quick action might be needed. However, in the current climate, where our city council seems to have a horrible anti-cop, anti-law enforcement agenda, I think anything that slows them down a bit and gives the public more of a say is probably a good thing. We've seen some questionable public safety legislation coming out of this council, and I think this 30-day review period would allow the public to weigh in before laws that could hurt police, fire, or correction services are pushed through. In this case, giving the public more time to get informed and have their voices heard might just be the best safeguard we get. To be continued.
Halliday presents, in the red corner, the undisputed, undefeated Weed Whacker Guy. Champion of hurling grass and pollen everywhere. And in the blue corner, the challenger, extra strength Halliday. Eye drops that work all day to prevent the release of histamines that cause itchy allergy eyes. And the winner by knockout is Halliday. Halliday, bring it on.
The Other Side of Midnight.
77 WABC.
Local Spotlight.
As I mentioned, it was great to meet so many of you at the parade yesterday, and it was great to have some fun broadcasting with Curtis Lewa again, something that I don't get to do enough on the air these days, even though it's something that we did for about a decade. But one of the interesting moments in the parade yesterday was when they had this great float from St. John's University, and all of a sudden, Curtis starts booing. And a lot of the people, even a lot of the people we work with, they're looking at Curtis, they're saying, wait a minute, why is he booing college students? St. John's University, New York's largest Catholic university. Well, it's because in a story that I first broke 6 years ago, when the Conservative Party chairman in my home county, David Curcio, first brought this to my attention, St. John's University, New York's largest Catholic university, has canceled Columbus Day. That's right. The holiday is no longer called Columbus Day on their academic calendar, and instead it's referred to as a fall mini break. Now, if this isn't one of the most ridiculous examples of a university bowing to woke pressure, I don't know what is. Let's be clear about something. St. John's is a Catholic university. Christopher Columbus, love him or hate him, was a devout Christian whose voyages to the New World were sponsored by Catholic monarchs. Yes, there's a lot of controversy surrounding Columbus. He wasn't perfect, and his treatment of the indigenous people is something we can't ignore, but erasing him from the calendar altogether? It's a slap in the face, not just to the Italian-American community, but frankly, it's an insult to the very history that St. John's is supposed to honor. Italian-American leaders are understandably upset. Curtis and I interviewed Angelo Vivolo about this. He's the president of the Columbus Heritage Coalition. He put it best when he called this decision insane. It is insane. Columbus Day has been a federal holiday for decades, and while it's important to recognize the impact of Columbus's arrival on the indigenous people, renaming the holiday as a vague fall mini break completely undermines the cultural significance that it holds for all sorts of people, Italian Americans and beyond. It's not just about Columbus. This move is part of a larger trend of trying to erase figures from history because they don't live up to modern standards. It drives me crazy, and it's absolutely got to stop. To be continued.